Welcome to Everything Teams Phone Live. Happy Friday, everyone. Welcome to Season 2, Episode 85 of Everything Teams Phone Live. We got a pretty cool guest today. He is our friend and has joined us a few times here on Everything Teams Phone Live. Miguel Corteguera. Miguel, welcome.
Thank you, Rick. Great being back with you and Brandon and Bailey and being part of the conversation here.
Brandon has got so many technical questions to ask you, Miguel. I'm like, Brandon, get ready, load up. Brandon, we've got the guy coming fresh off of the Microsoft, what was it called? Tech
Connect, yeah.
Tech, right off of the heels of the Microsoft Tech Connect. So I'm sure you've got a bunch of great information to share with us. Before we dive in, though, Bailey.
Yes.
She's our amazing producer, Miguel, and she just has like this thing down. She keeps us corralled, and she's got some stuff that she needs to go over. So, Bailey, if you would, please.
Sure thing. This episode is sponsored by Momentum, where we help businesses thrive using Microsoft Teams. Episode 85. Back to you guys.
Awesome. Thank you, Bailey. Brandon, how are you today, buddy?
Off we go. Episode 85, season 2. You know, I was in the green room and you were asking me if we were ready to go. And I'm feeling scattered at the moment. But, you know, I was thinking when we were joining and I was off looking at something. That's why I was scattered. I was looking. I can't remember whose podcast we were watching. They had a branded Shure microphone cover. And so I was off actually looking for that. I'm like, where's my Everything Teams Phone Live microphone cover for my Shure microphone? So Bailey, wink, wink, wink.
Or Miguel, wink, wink, Miguel. Where's that at? I'm sure we could go find someone on campus somewhere.
Oh, you mean for a Microsoft cover?
It's like, borrow it, So real quick, I'm from Texas originally, and there's a burger joint called Whataburger, Whataburger, Whataburger. And if you're a Californian, you go In-N-Out's the best burger. If you're East Coaster, you're like Five Guys is the best burger. If you're Texas Southeast, Southwest, you're like, no, it's Whataburger. But they have these little triangles with your number on it, right? You place an order inside the restaurant or whatever, and it's got these little triangles. They're orange, the color of their brand, and it's got 44, 38. So it's your number. Well, I don't know this for a fact, but I've heard that people take those like pretty often. Like they're like, it's like little keepsakes. Like, oh, let me take this little keepsake from Whataburger. I've never done it. And so I was thinking, I wonder if there's a few Microsoft Shure covers just kind of hanging around at the campus. It's like,
we don't endorse taking things. On a side note, I live in a condo complex, and I happen to live right across the hallway from me is the unit 420. And if you know what 420 means, that door placard goes missing probably once every year or so.
Does it
Someone
really?
And rips it off the wall. Like, it's weird how people want things like that.
Yeah, little keepsakes. Okay, all right. Well, let's get this episode off and running. Miguel, we've got some cool stuff to cover. You're gonna roll through the Qs app with us, which is I think it rolled out. Was it November, December, or something?
In October, actually, end of October. Yeah, I think last time I was on, it was still planned to go GA, but we weren't GA yet, so we were in that period.
Yeah, because I remember asking you about some demo opportunities, and now right. It's out there. It's in the wild. I think there's some really cool feature updates coming that we can talk about around the Qs app as well, that maybe you have a little more details on than maybe what we have, if you're willing to share.
Yeah, so it went GA at the end of October, and then at the end of December, we quietly rolled out a small feature. We started supporting VDI, which wasn't supported originally. And then we rolled out support just recently for the Qs app on Teams phone devices. So, the physical phones. So there's been some customers that are interested in that for a use case where folks just want to use a basic functionality within a physical phone. And then the the big one that everybody's waiting for is the monitor whisper barge takeover.
Oh, that's huge.
So yeah, that's gonna, you know, fill in a few more gaps for customers that had blockers where they wanted, you know, the supervisors to be able to monitor and provide coaching and guidance and all that. That's on the public roadmap now for next month, for March.
Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest one I hear, you know, as I'm talking to customers. They, you know, that's a kind of a stakeholder or table stake type requirement for, you know, that contact center-esque feature. The other one is skilling, which I don't know if Microsoft has any plans to do any kind of basic skilling in maybe even the Qs app. But I will say I've seen some really clever solutions from customers where they kind of stack call queues to kind of give a different workaround for that skilling, which seems to work in the more light contact center environments.
Yeah, it does. I've seen it used a lot in like branch type environments where it's like the regular workers are in the main queue, and then if calls don't get answered there in a certain amount of time, it'll overflow to, you know, maybe include like the managers or, you know, some leadership there that are kind of like the backup agents, or maybe another department that usually doesn't take calls, but, you know, they want to have the calls answered in a decent amount of time.
Speaking of another feature that quietly just rolled, I say quietly, it got some attention. I think I did a LinkedIn post on it. I know several people did. Kind of, I can't remember when it was, but it was, I feel like it was last year, November timeframe, maybe. The callback queue. What's been your what's the feedback you've heard on the callback feature in the call queue?
Yeah, that's a great point you brought up, Brandon, because I didn't even think about that automatically because we were focused on the Qs app, but the callback is something that's available not just to the Qs app with the premium licensing, but to all of call queues. So that one's been one that we received very positive feedback on. And initially it rolled out just using PowerShell, like you know, many features do, right? And then at the beginning of the year, it got the Teams Admin Center support for configuration, which is a nice step for anybody that wants the ease of configuring it. So that we've gotten some good feedback on that, and it's another one of those welcome features that some customers have been asking for years.
It's just nice to have that. I mean, that's a great. I mean, it's a really, really nice feature. Last night I called UPS. Okay, and I ordered some shoes. I called Hoka. I called, and then they're like, "No, call UPS." I call UPS, sent some shoes to my son, and I'm like, "Oh man!" I tried online. I downloaded the app, and it didn't work. It's because my area is closer to me than it is to him, so he has to do it. Anyway, I'm like, "Okay, let me just call him," and I call him, and they're like, "Yeah, okay, thanks for calling. You're 11 minutes down the road. We'll just call you back." I'm like, "Okay, that's cool." So I just like literally just kind of said, "Okay," good. Hung up, callback feature done. And 12 minutes later, 11, 12 minutes later, there was my call, had my chat, didn't have to sit around waiting for anything. It's just a nice feature to have. If you're doing a lot of phone work, if you've got a real queue, right? If you're doing real customer service, I say real customer service, but customer service via telephone, you know, you need a callback feature. You need the callback feature.
I think that's just another table stake in, you know, that contact center type solution where, you know, I'm working with a customer on a fairly regular basis that they have a global service desk for their company. They're a very large organization, and they don't need a massive contact center solution. And what's really cool about this callback feature in the Qs app is they happen to be a GCC High customer. And we were working with them, and I saw in GCC High now that the callback feature has showed up in the admin center. So
nice.
that has piqued a lot of their interest to start thinking, oh, maybe we can move this to Microsoft versus a third party, you know, expensive solution, and we can get our basic functionality that we need for that 24-hour service desk for their corporate needs.
Miguel, I'm going to just ask Brandon to stop saying it's just table stakes now, because Brandon, like his history is, Miguel, he came from a contact center company where they had, I don't know, 75,000 users, BICs, what they call them. I'm not going to elaborate on the acronym, but so when he sits there and goes, that's just table stakes. That's just table stakes. Like everything is table stakes. And I'm like, come on, man, this is good stuff right here.
But I mean, it is when you think about Microsoft, and this isn't a sleight of hand. When you think about Microsoft mastering the UCaaS, right, the phone system, and then deciding, oh, you know what, let's add some contact center features. Like, that's huge, right? Because traditionally, you don't see that in a lot of phone system providers, right? Obviously, your Avayas, you're the big boys that have been around for ages, have all of that. So I say table stakes, you're right, because I've worked on these Goliath systems, but Microsoft, the speed at which Microsoft is cranking these out, I know a lot of people look at that and go, these features have been around forever. Yeah, if you want to pay a lot of money for them. Whereas Microsoft's saying, here, you can have them as part of your base licensing price, or maybe a little uptick for premium.
Yeah.
So it's massive.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, Brandon. And it's not only the pricing also, to me, it's like the ease of deployment and configuration and just like managing it. Because it's one thing to turn up a couple features that are in Teams Admin Center. So if you're a Teams administrator, you're familiar with all that, right? You're taking advantage of all the same like policies and screens and then all the compliance and logging and everything else that's built into Teams. Then to add on an integration to a third party.
Mm-hmm.
So for those like light contact center features and informal contact center, however you want to call it, it's great if it can meet your needs.
Not to put anybody on the spot, but Brandon or Miguel, is there a chance we could get like a 2-3 minute sort of like overview of the Q's app? Like if someone that hasn't seen it, does anybody want to just kind of share it on the screen and kind of just take people kind of through it a little bit? That'd be kind of cool. You guys think about that for just a second. I want to ask about something else really quickly while you guys figure out if that's something that you can do here. I heard something about extensibility. So Teams apps for PSTN calls. It's I think something in public preview, right? Is that kind of extensibility? What is extensibility?
Yeah, so that's a nice new announcement that we made. It was in the public roadmap for a little bit, and it just hit it hit public preview. I think it was like last week. So that is actually a broad Teams phone feature. It's not specific to Q's app or contact center. And what it basically is in the Teams meeting space, for forever you've been able to have an app that's a part of a meeting. So you can like extend the functionality of that meeting. And what we're doing is we're bringing that to PSTN calls. So the primary audience of that has been like ISVs and developers and companies that have an existing product and they want to tie it into Teams. So you could think of, for example, like in the legal field, there's these companies that provide all kinds of apps and tools to track the lawyer's time and their the time they spend on the phone. It's a very like phone and call heavy kind of industry. So imagine if you were just on a Teams call and right in the same context of Team, you have a little app that that gives you a glimpse into that system for tracking time. So you could enter time there, you could enter notes. Also, there would be context of the call that would be available because it's an app within Teams, right? So it knows the caller and the person and the timestamps and everything else. So all that kind of stuff, you could backfeed it to the system as well. So that's the primary audience, but of course it's available, right? Teams is open, so anybody could write their own Teams apps, whether it's for meetings or now calling. So if you're one of these large complex enterprise customers that does their own custom developers and have talent, or you have folks you can hire as the dev talent, you could create a custom app for your calls to integrate. Many companies have like their own like homegrown systems for like CRM and that kind of stuff, where it could be a value.
Yeah, we got Rick. I was going to say we have a big financial firm that would probably be really interested in this. If you remember, you and I were up in that 90-degree little coffee shop in London a couple of years ago, talking to them about their requirement to go into Teams was you have to be able to support custom development type screen pop for their homegrown CRM. And my mind's already turning like, oh, we need to get a demo out and go show this customer that, because that may be game changer for these guys.
So let me ask you a question, just because so there we've got a faxing application that we wrote, right, and that sits on the sidebar of Microsoft Teams, right? So is it an app? Is it something that is it going to go through the App Store, that kind of thing, or is it like a tabbed sort of web-based thing that's like tabulated inside of the Teams calling screen?
Yeah, so it uses the same structure as regular Teams apps that you would have. So for an app you have within Teams, and also the meetings apps use the same structure today. So this is just extending that and taking advantage of all that.
Got it. Okay, cool.
Yeah, that'll be a nice. I know we get lots of customers that talk about screen pop integration and support around that screen pop. I think this is just a really good enrichment of the basic URL screen pop that's out in a web browser. It is going to bring, I think, a lot more flexibility to how you customize, like you said, Miguel, context around the phone call. Maybe beyond just, hey, I know the calling number. Now I can start to actually do things with the context of that call.
Oh, that's the cool thing. I mean, if you've got the number in the CRM as an example, obviously you could do a dip and present the screen, but instead of having it present, and everybody who does integration knows this, it's like another browser, another browser, another browser, another browser, right? Instead of actually having to present all the browsers for all the calls, think about if you're taking a lot of calls as an example, right? Browser, 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 browser. That's not a good experience. But now it's in the context of the Teams call. So it's right in the call. So you've got instant access to the information that's provided from a third-party application presented to you right on your phone call screen. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I think where this is helpful too is if you have use cases where you have these knowledge workers or information workers that don't need like the full CRM experience, right? They're just doing a certain task. They're taking calls and maybe documenting things. And sometimes even if you had the whole CRM experience, it's like overwhelming, right? Because there's all these fields and records and pages. But what if you could just create if you have enough of a volume or a need for it, if you could create an app that just takes the fields and the information that they need to do that task and embed that in Teams, then like you were saying, Rick, it's all right there. You don't need to go anywhere else. There's no other screen. So
I just sent that to Bailey because you've got some online documentation now about it, right? Since it's a public preview, I just sent a note to Bailey so we can post it. So if you guys want some information on that, we just posted the link for it, so you can go see the link and see what that looks like. That's fantastic. That's a great update there. Does anyone want to show the Q's app? Is that a possibility to get anyone to show the Q's app?
I checked. Unfortunately, I'm not on plug your ears, Miguel. I'm not on a Microsoft desktop, so my Teams app is limited. I can't show the Q's app. I'm on a Linux desktop right now. That seems to be the best for podcasting. So sorry, Rick.
Man, all right. Miguel, could you show anything, Miguel, or is it?
I can show the simulator, which is what I showed last time. It's a good view into it because it's got some data in there that we can look at as examples and things like that. So
perfect. Let's do that. That'd be great. Just so we can get a little tour, right? I mean, I know what it looks like. Brandon knows what it looks like, but it'd be great to show the audience a little tour of it.
Let me do. Let's see if I can get this going.
I'm excited about this whole integration right into the calling thing. That's I can see, Brandon, tons and tons of use cases for having that calling data right in the screen now.
Yeah, and I think it just streamlines the experience, right? Like you were saying earlier, instead of tab after tab after tab. And every time I give a demo of Screen Pop, I shouldn't say that. Every time I give a demo of Teams Phone, I have Screen Pop enabled, and so every time I show someone a call, up pops my browser and it gets in the way. And while it's a good segue to say, oh, by the way, it also does Screen Pop, it does create extra noise, whereas in context it's just going to be there, and it would still be a great segue to talk about, but then you're not trying to get things out of the way when you're doing a demo.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And then we'll talk about a little bit. Oh, here we go. Let Miguel run through this a little bit, and then we'll talk about texting. Miguel, that's a big thing for a lot of organizations.
Yep. All right. So here's the this is a simulator that we have for the Qs app. So there's two different views. There's the agent, and this would be the view that I get as an agent when I'm logged in. Here in this case, I am Rita, and it's highlighting here that I'm not opted in. So I'm part of the queue, but I'm not taking calls. The nice thing about it here compared to the world before the Qs app, right, is that before I didn't have any context of what was going on that day, especially the number of calls waiting in queue, and that was the killer blocker for many of our customers, which was, hey, this looks interesting. I don't need like a fully featured contact center, but I got to know how many callers are in queue, because that's the face of my business, and it's impacting the satisfaction of callers and folks that I'm working with in the outside world, right? So in this case, I'm Rita. I can opt in here. The other thing I'll point out here is if you are a member of multiple queues, these are tabs up here that you can flip around and move between different queues. But in this case, I'm Rita, and I'm going to go ahead and opt in. And here I'm getting a call already. So this is just like Teams phone, same interface and everything else. I can answer it. I'm able to transfer calls here like I normally would to other agents if I need to get that call to someone else. In this case here, we're showing a functionality that will be coming in the future. This is not here yet. So two things that you're seeing here is missed calls. So that's probably our biggest ask with the Qs app and Qs in general, is to be able to see like a shared call history or missed calls. And then the other bonus thing that we'll be getting along with that is if you see this not resolved tag here. So for those calls, that'll solve another problem which our customers have, which is if you have a missed call or a voicemail, you have if it's just one or two people in that queue, you can just talk to the other person and communicate easily, right, about who handled that missed call or that voicemail. But now with this interface, if it's a larger group, if somebody handles a missed call or follows up on a voicemail, you can designate that call as, hey, I resolved that call. So here you see the missed call status, and you'll be able to take that call and mark it as resolved or handled, so that others in the group can see that status.
That's going to be a big one.
Yeah.
Rick, firsthand, we went out and created a year and a half ago. We created a Power Automate flow to solve this problem for a customer, specifically around voicemail. So this is big.
Yeah, there's been a few third-party solutions out there, some very creative stuff, but it'll be so nice to have this as part of the product out of the box.
Man, little things like this. This is great, because little things like this add to the overall functionality for more and more organizations that have either opted out or not adopted it full on for their core routing system. And now, these sorts of things you can.
Yep. And then getting towards the end of the agent experience, one option you do have is you have the ability to make a call. So you can make a call on behalf of the queue. This is a pretty popular feature too, because sometimes companies, they don't want individual agents calling customers. They want to call on behalf of the company or the department. It's especially handy if that customer then misses the call and calls back. You want to be able to get that call back into the queue and not directly to the agent. So here we're showing that you can click the call button, and then you're able to make calls on behalf of queues that you're a member of. So you place that call. When you're done, you wrap up, and here we are back at the beginning of it.
And all that, just to point out, all that for the viewers watching, the agent hasn't left the context of Teams to do their call handling work, whether it's opting in, viewing missed calls, all of the work that goes around being part of the call queue.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's what makes this beautiful.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at the supervisor experience here. So supervisor experience is kind of it's the same app. What really is a difference between an agent and a supervisor is just whatever policies that you have assigned. So you have these policies that an administrator will go in and grant the users, and that's another area that gets lost a little bit here too, because we talk in this binary sense of agent and supervisor. When I present the Queues app, one distinction I like to make is go a little bit into the weeds and show, hey, you can have different types of roles. It's not just agent and supervisor. So depending on the policies you assign, you could give like full control to have visibility into all the reporting, the ability to change any of the delegated settings, the ability to monitor whisper, barge, takeover, right? That's coming. Or you could have maybe, like a full person that you delegate things to, like a department head or main supervisor. But you could also have roles that are, sometimes groups have people that are focused on reporting, right? You have somebody that's a whiz at taking Excel and Power BI and all these things, and you just want to give them access to the reporting aspects of the Queues app and not anything else. Or you might have someone that's maybe a backup to the supervisor, and you don't want to give them the access to monitor folks or do all the heavy reports. You just want to give them the access to change delegated settings. So if that supervisor is out on vacation or in some kind of emergency and someone needs to change like the greeting or the hours, or there's a snowstorm and you got to close the site and make some changes, you can do that but not have everything else. So that's a nice feature of it that often gets overlooked.
Yeah, I know coming from big contact centers, as Rick mentioned earlier, one of the big ones is having the ability for a trainer to sit in line with the agents. Let's say it's new employees coming on board and they've gone through the first wave of training and now they're being introduced to the fire hydrant, if you will. And having that trainer having the only ability is to monitor and whisper to coach that person through the call. To your point, Miguel, just stressing the flexibility of policy to limiting the person to the access that they require, nothing more.
Yeah, absolutely. And when that feature rolls out, you will have granular control, so you can assign levels of, increasing from monitoring to whisper to then barge and take over. So takeover gives you all of the functionality, but if you only want someone to like monitor or whisper and not be able to join calls, you could do that as well. So
that's a good looking app. That's a good looking. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to go back to the view here. So thanks for the comment. So one feature as a supervisor, and this is also policy driven, right? Is if the ability to opt in my agents out there. So this could be something I choose to do as a supervisor if I see that there's a heavy call volume, a lot of waiting calls. Here in this example, we see 15, and I see some folks out there that are available, but they're opted out. I can go ahead and opt them in right from here. And then here we see the ability to do the monitor, whisper, barge takeover. So we see someone that's in a call. I can go ahead here and select monitor. And at this point, I would be listening to that call. So this would be like that situation where I'm just observing new agents or observing a particular call. And then I can choose to whisper if I want to coach that agent. That is a super common coaching mechanism. So that's where that agent is listening to your voice as a supervisor, but the caller is not able to hear that. And then if I need to join that call, and typically this sometimes is done from like an agent perspective, like an agent maybe we'll chat out to the supervisor like, hey, I'm in this, tricky situation in a call. Can you listen in or, barge in and join me? And that's where I would have that ability. And then I can do takeover, which is where the supervisor just takes over the call and bumps out the agent. That one is less common from what I've seen in the need and the use, but it's available as an option as well. And then the last piece here is on the analytics side. So I'm able to have access to both real-time analytics, and this is all, again, policy-based. So I can go in and grant access to auto attendance, queues, particular agents, so that you can get a view into exactly what's going on. And I also have that for historical reporting. Now, historical reporting has been available since before with Power BI template, but this is nice. Now you don't need to have a whole different system and interface. It's all built right into it. And then the last piece is the delegated settings. So that link actually takes you to the team settings. So under calls, if I have settings that are delegated, I can go in here and I can see settings for different queues, different auto attendants, and I can change, a number. I don't even know how many, but we used to have about 5 different delegated settings in Teams for the message greetings and things like that, and those remained. Those are part of the regular functionality within Teams, the core feature set. But then with Premium and Queues app, there's like 40 more features that are added to be able to be delegated.
Just to kind of refresh everybody too, the Queues app is with you get that with the premium Teams Premium, yeah. And the Teams Premium kind of uplift for now, I think, is what, like, is it $10 still? Is it $10?
Yeah, it's $10 is the MSRP.
What an amazing, like, seriously, getting this, and I know you guys are stuffing Premium with a bunch of features, but this is just a cool feature right here. I mean, the Queues app is such a handy thing for organizations to have, even if it's just for a small group, 5 users or 10 users, and it's not necessarily a call center ready to outfit with either the Dynamics call center or some other big, kind of heavy platform, because those are like, Miguel, those are like in the hundreds of dollars, right? $80 to $150 or $200 per user, and this is $10.
Yeah.
I mean, it's literally, you can look at like, this is $10 to add this. That's pretty cool.
Yep. Yeah, and then you get all the other Teams Premium functionality with it. So it's a great deal, and the more functionality you're using there, the greater the value.
Webinar feature. I mean, if everyone, like the Microsoft Teams, and a lot of people don't know this, but the webinar feature is great. I mean, we're hosting several webinars, and we started to build them on Teams, and we're like, this is great, because then we can go run Power Automate scripts to go tie it to, our other applications, and have a whole sort of workflow around people registering for our webinars.
Yeah, and not only Power Automate, but the Graph APIs. I worked with a customer that had their own learning management system, and what they're essentially doing is their learning management system is the front end for everything, and then they leverage Teams as that infrastructure, and they use the APIs to do all the scheduling, to get all the reports out of it. So they really love it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now, there's another big thing coming out, and it's we've talked about the extensibility. I think that's going to be super cool for organizations, particularly except for the developer guys. We've gone through the Teams app. By the way, thank you very much for the thorough walkthrough of the Teams app. And if that's a link, Miguel, I'd love for Bailey to be able to post that for us, so we've got that, so we can kind of show that off in our notes down there, or comments. And then I want to go over one thing that people have a lot of questions about. It's texting. What's the texting look like? When's it coming out? What can people expect from texting?
Yeah, I don't have a demo of that one here, but like texting, you're referring to a SMS, correct?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So we announced that back. I think it might have been at Ignite, but it's essentially SMS for calling plans in the U.S. and Canada. So that is our first official push into SMS with Teams Phone. and it's on the public roadmap for this month. So if all goes well, we're already past the halfway part of the month. So if all goes well, we should be seeing it later this month, and it'll be part of the calling plans within Teams. It'll be something that's at a user level, and it'll be very very similar to like the chats that you have within Teams. You'll have your text messages there in that same kind of structure.
Yeah, is it so yeah, on calling plans in the US and North America or US Canada, is it now, are we talking 10-digit texting? So I'm an individual user and I'm sending out a message, from my assigned number. Is
Correct.
that
Yeah.
kind of
For your user number? Yep.
okay? That's fantastic. Is there going to be an uplift for that, or is that just included now?
So, from my understanding, it'll be part of the packaging that is bundled with calling plans. Like you'll get a certain amount in there, and then there'll be like overages, same as it is within calls. I haven't seen the exact details yet, but when the feature goes GA, take a look at the pricing information for calling plans, and that'll be appended to show the SMS functionality.
Yeah, I think two of the biggest questions I can already see customers asking is the management of campaign registry, setting that up for brand campaign. I think anyone that is in the business world that has had to go through that knows how painful that is.
Yeah.
So be interesting to see how Microsoft handles that, allowing customers to kind of work through that workflow. And then maybe my technical question is from there, what's going to be the ability from a Power Platform perspective to start automating things like you just mentioned, a scheduling platform that's tied in via Graph API. It'll be really interesting to see what the capabilities are for tying workflow automation to that SMS.
Are you talking about dental reminders, Brandon? Are you talking about
any
schedule and it's like, here's your reminder? Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Any kind, and if it's true A to P, then that's obviously that's something that's supported.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have a little bit of that today in other contexts for like booking and the virtual appointments.
Yep.
So those are there today. There are some geography limitations there. It started off with like US and Canada, but that's expanded recently to other international markets. So that's been a popular request as well, because all the studies and the feedback from customers that they've done is when you have these virtual appointments or appointments in real life, the amount of people that show up, that rate increases significantly when you send out the reminders. So
yeah,
that's an important feature.
I for one, and Rick and I always have this debate because he prefers calls. I prefer written, because for me I can respond at convenience, but reminders for me are huge. I got this animal sitting right behind me, snoozing away. He goes into a groomer every 2 months or so, and it used to be that they would call me and remind me, and if I'm out doing things or I'm working, I'll take the phone call. I'll be like, oh yeah, that works, and I hang up. And 5 minutes later, I'm like, oh crap, what day and time did they remind me? Versus now I get a text message that says, here's the date, here's the time, please reply yes to confirm. Now I have a log. I'm speaking as a consumer now, right? I have history of, if 5 minutes from now I can't remember, I open my text app and I go, oh yeah, it's at 9:30 tomorrow morning. So I think there's huge value to that. And then to speak to the stats you were talking about, Miguel, is I do think people show up to appointments more often if they have the convenience of that reminder versus the phone call that they forget about.
So just to be clear, you're talking about text reminders, right? So text message, SMS reminders. So here's what's interesting, and Mark Vail built a model of this in the Power Platform, Brandon. Miguel, this is I don't know if Microsoft is, I'm sure Microsoft has thought about this, but this is pretty cool. We were kicking around an idea of building sort of here's a text message, a meet now, right? Where you send a text message out with a link we did a flow. Mark Vale did a flow for us where it created the meeting, and then if you didn't show up to the meeting, it deleted the meeting 5 minutes later, right? So as an example, if maybe you didn't have a calling plan, and you wanted to just collaborate, or an invite to collaborate right now, right? And so from an external, to an external number. So someone's, running around, you're like, I want to send a note to Brandon. He's on his cell phone, and I just send him a quick text, and it's a kind of a meet now text, and my invite was sent out via a text message with the link on there. The meeting's then created for Brandon just to click on and join the meeting, either WebRTC or on his client, whatever. If he's got it on his phone, right, hops on his client. But we thought that would be pretty cool because you really get these opportunities to go, I really want to meet somebody now, and I could do a phone call. That's great. But I need to show them something, and maybe they're on the go, and they're not, they're not sitting and watching their email and putting excuse me, sorry guys, putting the that's my marketing team. Thanks, marketing team. And putting that in the UI would be kind of cool, just to kind of really just bring a caller in to a collaboration right away from a mobile device. I think that'd be kind of cool. And that was, again, we created the workflow to show that, and so one day we'll kind of highlight that and show what that looks like, because we thought it was pretty snazzy to kind of build that. And the bookings thing was interesting because we're like, oh, that's if you've got Teams Premium, right?
Yeah.
I think it's Teams Premium. You've got that extra. It texts out from a short code. So it texts out from a short code, and it's like, here's your notification for your reminders, which is great. But it's like, boy, if you could put that in the normal, hey, just send a text out just to bring in an invite to collaborate. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, that is neat.
I think.
And that's where I really love the power of extensibility and some of these things that you can build on top of it. I researched a solution like that was targeted at like emergency scenarios, right? Like some event happens, and then you need to spin up a virtual meeting room. So I've seen Power Automate solutions out there where somebody triggers it, manually or through some process that goes into it and triggers it. And then it sets up the meeting. It'll invite folks depending on what the situation is. And it makes it so it's not dependent on a human being to coordinate all these activities, especially if it's, bad things usually happen at, the most inopportune times, right? When folks are not available or, not easily able to get online to schedule things.
Yeah.
It's interesting how people like I think you just completely forget about the tool set that you have available to you within the Microsoft ecosystem, right? That tool set, the Power Automate, Power BI, Teams Phone, Azure Communication Services, right? The click to call stuff now. I'm curious, are you seeing any amazing click to call sort of applications start to percolate out a little bit?
I've seen a couple things, and there's been a couple customers that have been playing around with more of the Azure Communication Services type integrations. So that's yet another way that you can do extensibility, right? So you have your screen pop that you talked about earlier, right? That's just opening up a web page. You have this new solution now that's built into Teams as an app in the call that we talked about. And then Azure Communication Services is a third way where you can take Teams Phone and that same identity of your Teams Phone user and embed that like in a custom application. So there have been a couple customers that I've worked with that are taking a look at that and playing around with it. And the nice thing about that is that it gives you complete control as a developer. So it's a pro code solution, and you're taking that raw SDK of Azure Communication Services, and you can configure whatever layout, embed it into your application, however you want to do it from a web perspective. So very powerful.
That's pretty cool. I love that stuff. Brandon, I interrupted you. Sorry.
Oh, I was going back to the the incident response thing. So that ship has sailed. I was just going to say I used to work for
a big contact center.
Yeah, I used to work for the biggest 911 provider, and you couldn't believe the amount of war rooms or incident response bridges that would get spun up. And to your point, Miguel, in that era that I worked there, it was a lot of times an incident would happen, and then you're waiting and waiting and waiting. Like I, as the technical person, following the incident response process, I'm waiting for the meeting. First of all, the resource has to get assigned to create the meeting, then invite the people on, because in a heavily regulated industry, you couldn't just go, even if you knew the fix, you couldn't just go fix it, right? You had to follow this whole regulated process. And sometimes as a technical person, you'd be sitting there going, I could have this fixed in 5 minutes, but you're waiting. You're not allowed to do anything until the process is finished. And to your point, being able to automate that instantly based on maybe an alarm, maybe on a click of a button, where you get that process started instantly, that's huge.
Absolutely.
Well, incident response is a big business. Isn't there a massive public company, starts with P and has a second word called D, right? Something like
I think you could say it, PagerDuty. I
PagerDuty.
don't think we're going to get in trouble for that.
I just don't want to get millions of listeners. I don't want to prop that up, right? I'm not trying to advertise that at all, right? We can go build the same thing in Power Automate, right? So, okay, all right. So yeah, I mean, you guys addressed that though for some of our customers in some cool workflows, right? And so that's pretty cool. Okay, we got a little bit of time left, and I want to cover one last thing, Miguel. There's some troubleshooting changes coming up, I think, or some new sort of visuals. Is it the ladder diagram stuff? Is that coming up, or it's? I think it's on the public roadmap now. Is that right?
Yeah, that just made it into the public roadmap. So that's one that I had shared internally a couple months back. So I don't do a lot of direct routing stuff myself. Like when I first joined, I wanted to see how it worked, and I actually set it up from scratch and everything else. But I know that our field, like our cloud solution architects that work with Teams Phone, and then especially our partners, folks like yourselves, and then especially our customers, they do a lot of hands-on work on SIP configurations, right, for direct routing and integrations and everything else. And today, if you're doing that and you run into an issue where you're getting some kind of funky result that's not working the way you expect it to, you got to call in a support case or engage a CSA from Microsoft. And what's coming now is in Teams Admin Center, you'll be able to get SIP ladder diagrams. So the full diagram of the call flow for your direct routing configurations. So there was a lot of excitement internally when we first heard that was committed, and now it just made it to the public roadmap. So I'm really happy to see that. That's going to take off a whole level of friction and frustration from our customers.
Your circle of friends, Miguel, that's inside Microsoft, when you're like, we're all really excited about this. Now I know who you're hanging with. It's the engineering team.
Yeah, and then to pile onto that, did I see rumors that CDR Insights is coming into the TAC as well? Maybe I'm in the spot. I think I saw LinkedIn about this.
There's a solution that we have that a couple of very talented folks from the engineering team built. That's called Call Records Insights. So that's available out there on GitHub, and you can implement it yourself. There has been a lot of requests for us to build that into the solution natively. I haven't seen anything on that yet, but there's that request, and then also going back to call center, we do have a lot of demand out there for we call it cradle to grave reporting, right? That's a pretty standard industry term. So customers want to see that very detailed, granular information of who called who, how many times did it ring before they answered it, who it was transferred to, and the full life cycle of that call, every second of that call, essentially. So nothing yet on that, but it is. I do want to acknowledge that there's a lot of demand for that as well. But you can get that today with Call Records Insight. The thing about it is you have to take that and deploy it yourself.
Mhm.
The nice thing about it is because it's something that we provide as a full template, a lot of the heavy lifting is done. That was a whole idea of the team building that, because the capability was always there, right, via the APIs and documentation and everything else. But what the team did that created that is they kind of made it an easy button. Like, here's a template, you can deploy it. Here's all the basics you get out of it. But then beyond that, you can take that as a customer or a partner, and you can fully customize that. So if there's data you don't want in there, you can ignore it. If there's data that you want to build your own custom charts and triggers for automation and things like that, you have the full power and control to build that. So it's very powerful.
That's awesome. I was chuckling a little bit, Miguel, because the not the validation, but what would you call it when you post? You qualified your cradle to grave comment. It's a standard industry term out there. I thought that was hilarious. All right, well that's such just a ton of good information, Miguel. Right off the tech visit that you had at campus there in Seattle. So that's pretty awesome for you to come and share that with us. It's super helpful for us to kind of be able to visualize the Q's app, show it to the listeners, and then actually talk about the things that are coming up, like texting you'll see in the calling plans and the SIP ladders and the extensibility that you're going to see right in the calling not card but the calling interface there. I think those are all super cool improvements. I mean, I got a question for you, just from a pure market perspective. How do you feel about customers right now, like the typical Microsoft base of customers? Are they all pretty familiar with Teams Phone? Does Microsoft feel like they're really penetrating the phone market? There's certainly a lot of market to get in the phone space. But how do you feel like overall? Are you seeing a massive wide adoption? I mean, Teams, by the way, I mean, everybody knows it's like the largest VoIP provider in the world at this point with 20 million plus subscribers. I don't know if you've even seen the number for 2024 yet. I'm expecting it to be 23, maybe 24, 25 million, somewhere around there. Maybe you've got some insight on that.
Yeah, the last number I saw was that big 20 million. So I think that was close to a year ago now. So
Yeah.
I'm curious to see when we update that as well. I think in general, Teams Phone is pretty widely known. What I run into, at least in my role in customer success, is there's a number of customers out there that have certain blockers, like the Q's app with the ability to see real time information and the number of callers in queue. That's a great example of it. But just like that, there's many other ones out there that the roadmap has been slowly filling in, and as those gaps and features get filled in, and also as we come up with additional functionality that wasn't even possible before, then it becomes more enticing. Like, all right, we've been sitting on this old like PDX technology, and it's limping along, and it's time to make the jump. So there's a lot of momentum out there that has been building, and then also once customers make that decision, it usually for large companies it takes them a while to get there, to get the project team together, their funding, their plans, work with partners like yourselves to get that moving.
Yeah. No, it's like I have a like, if I think about our mid-market and our large enterprise customers, right? It's like I don't run across typically, and I don't run across organizations that don't know Microsoft Teams Phone. Now they don't understand the capabilities yet. Still, they don't understand the full scope of the capabilities, and they certainly don't understand the capabilities of the ecosystem. Like that's still something that I find myself explaining quite often, is like, but you can do this with this, you can do this with that, right? And they go, oh wow. And it takes the place of actual other applications that they use in their everyday sort of life. So you look at that, and you go, I can just kind of keep it all right here, secure, logged, compliant, like all these things. So I find myself explaining those things quite a bit. But anymore, I feel like people know Teams Phone, and you're absolutely right. It's just removing the roadblocks to have that customer sort of climb on board and have us run with the deployment. What's interesting though, what I'm finding more and more, and Microsoft wouldn't, I don't think would even kind of acknowledge this. Maybe they would, but I'm seeing it quite a bit in the SMB also, like 50 users to 250 users. Now Microsoft's 800 users and below, I think, is the SMB, but 50 users to 250 users, we see a lot of those guys coming in and looking to adopt Teams. And they're typically not your E5 clients. They're typically like, hey, they're going to go pay the extra for Teams Phone. But I see more and more of those coming in these days, and I'm like, oh wow, that's pretty awesome. That's and for us, the deployment on those guys, Miguel, I mean, just like you said, it's like managing Teams Phone is pretty straightforward, right? I'm not going to say it's easy just because we charge pro services, Miguel, but it's it's pretty straightforward if you know what you're doing. So it's pretty exciting to be delivering a service that just keeps on getting better and better and better, and people want it. People just want it.
Rick, I was going to say, speaking of deployment, you and I were on a call last week, and this was even a more complex. It was a GCC High prospect where their last question to us was, how fast can you deploy this? And we laughed and we're like, literally hours from start to finish, we could have you done.
Oh, they were no number support, Miguel.
They just needed new numbers.
And we're like, sign a contract and off we go.
Yeah.
We could have you done. And when I say hours, I'm not exaggerating. Like by the time we go generate the SSL certificates for GCC High, set up the direct routing, and then the Teams piece is I'm not going to oversimplify when I say it's the easy part. It's like, click these policies, set this up, and boom, you're off and running. And in the commercial environment, especially with calling plans or things like Operator Connect that are automated and programmatic, it's minutes to be up and running.
Yeah, very good. Well, Miguel, we want to be respectful of your time. We certainly appreciate you joining us for episode 85. I hope you've got a nice weekend planned for yourself, Miguel, and have something fun planned.
Sorry.
That was kind of funny, huh? Okay. Anything else, Brandon? You want to wrap this thing up, buddy?
This has been an insightful discussion, around the new things coming and just a good refresher on things like the Qs app. So, Miguel, we appreciate your time. Bailey, let's wrap her up and send it out.
All right. See you guys next time. Bye.